Hello, and welcome to Columbia Dance. We are super excited to tell you all about our magical Nutcracker ballet. The Nutcracker has been a holiday tradition for over 100 years. It is a story that is told through dance. That means that it's not like a movie or a TV show. Nobody talks with their mouths. They speak with their dancing and their hand gestures. Let's see what that is like. Olivia is going to tell you something using only her hands. Let's see if you can guess what she's saying. Now pause the video and guess what she might have been saying. Now we are going to have Leah do the pantomime. Pantomime, or mime for short, is what you call it when you speak without using your mouth. Leah says, "I have a square box that has something inside. Open it up and it's a present. I've looked over here and I've looked over there. Where are the presents?" Can you guess what happens after she says that? All of the children do a dance trying to find the hidden presents. Most Nutcrackers follow a little girl named Clara. Her family has a holiday party with games and dancing. And one of their guests, Mr. Drosselmeyer, brings magic to the party. He also brings Clara a Nutcracker doll as a present. And Clara falls asleep and dreams of the most wild things. Giant mice fighting with the Nutcracker's army of soldiers. A queen and a king made of snow. Dancing snowflakes. And a grand tour of the Sugar Plum Fairy's Kingdom of Sweets. Each version of the Nutcracker is slightly different, and Columbia Dance has decided to weave some local history into our production. I'm going to guess that some of you may have visited Fort Vancouver. Fort Vancouver is a national park right here in our town. It was made a national park because it represents a very interesting time in our history. Fort Vancouver is built on the homelands of the Cowlitz and Chinook people, who have lived along the Columbia River and its tributaries for a very, very long time. Before the fort was built, this place was a prairie. Fort Vancouver was built in 1825 by the Hudson's Bay Company. The park as we see it today is constructed exactly as it would have looked 180 years ago in the 1840s. It has a stockade wall that surrounded the buildings inside. That long ago, Vancouver wasn't even part of the United States yet, but it was the biggest town around. In this time, there weren't phones or cars or grocery stores, but there was a trading post. Fort Vancouver was home to the Hudson's Bay Trading Post, which was run by a company in England. You might think of it as the Fred Meyer of 1840s. The biggest difference was that you didn't bring money to the store. You brought items to trade. Just like you might trade one really valuable Pokemon card for a bunch of less valuable Pokemon cards, the people living in Vancouver brought items to the fort to trade for other items that they needed. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? Well, in Columbia Dance's Nutcracker, the holiday party that starts the ballet is going to take place at the Chief Factor's home in Fort Vancouver. The Chief Factor was the boss of the Hudson's Bay Company trading post, so he had the finest house. His house was inside the fort walls and had many luxuries that the people outside the fort walls didn't have. Every character in the party scene of our ballet is based on a real live person that lived in Vancouver nearly 200 years ago. When you come to see our performance in December, you will see a doctor, a Navy lieutenant, a school teacher, and more. Our lead character is called Cecilia Douglas instead of Clara because Cecilia Douglas is the name of a real little girl who lived in the grand house at Fort Vancouver. You will see all of the different guests arrive at the party, and then you will see Cecilia dancing with her friends as they decorate the house for the holidays with garlands of greenery. You will see them try to find hidden presents when their parents leave the room. And then you will see them mesmerized by Dr. McLaughlin, who brings magic to the party. Dr. McLaughlin in real life didn't have magical powers, but he was an incredibly important person in Washington and Oregon's history. When he was the leader of Fort Vancouver, many Americans were arriving in Vancouver after traveling the dangerous Oregon Trail. They had literally walked across the United States to get here. Remember, there weren't cars yet, and they were starving and out of supplies when they got here. Even though they had nothing valuable to trade, Dr. McLaughlin allowed them to get food and clothes from the trading post. Now, Dr. McLaughlin is going to bring lots of magic to the party, which I won't tell you about now because I want you to be surprised when you see it. He is also going to bring a boy from outside the fort walls, a boy who makes his living as a fur trapper. This boy will become friends with Cecilia and begin to tell her all about the people who live outside the fort, an area that she is not very familiar with. When the party ends, Cecilia will go to sleep and dream of the people her new friend told her about. Cecilia will dream about fur trappers fighting giant beavers and about a moon girl that dances with snowflakes. She will dream about a fairy that looks like a Hawaiian flower and all sorts of other fantastical visions that will lead her on a wonderful adventure in her sleep. I'm upstairs in Columbia Dance's costume shop. When you come and see our Nutcracker performance, you will get to see all of the talented dancers on stage performing live for an audience. But what you won't get to see is the talented people that work behind the scenes to create all of the magic. One of the people that is so important to the production is the costume designer. And we're going to talk a little bit about what a costume designer does. I'm going to share with you some of the one-of-a-kind creations that our designer made just for this Nutcracker. All the costumes for Columbia Dance's Nutcracker are one of a kind. You can't buy them at Target or Amazon. They were designed just for us by costume designer Christine Darsh. It starts with a conversation where the choreographer and the designer discuss what they want each character to look like. Then the costume designer creates a sketch of the costume. Once we've decided that that is what we want the costume to look like, the designer goes to a fabric store to find lots of different fabrics to bring that costume to life. They have to have just the right sheen to look really magical under the stage lighting. Next comes the construction. We call that building the costume. And that's when seamstresses actually make the tutu or the dress or what have you. And then last, after that, the costume has to be fit on the specific dancer and tailored so that they can move effortlessly in this beautiful creation. Now I'm going to show you my very favorite costume of this production. You remember earlier that I told you there was going to be a battle between the fur trappers and the beavers. So our costume designer had to figure out how to turn kids into beavers. Once again, it started with a sketch. Now the beaver costume is a little tricky because we needed to put something on the children's head to make them look like beavers. So next the designer created a foam headpiece that then got covered with fabric and embellished to look like a real beaver head. Aren't those cool? Now I want to give you a little guessing game here, and I'm not going to tell you the answer until you come to the show. This piece of fabric here is going to be used in the beaver costume. Can you guess what beaver body part that might be used on? All right, now we have talked about our costume designer. Another key player in designing a production is the set designer and property master. They help design the backdrop, the furniture pieces that will be on stage, and all the items that the cast will use to tell the story. Remember, the beavers and the trappers are having a battle, so we wanted the beavers to have some sort of weapon. What better weapon for a beaver? A log. Beavers build dams. Now that was a little tricky because having dancers run around on stage with actual sticks could be quite dangerous. Someone could get hurt. So our set designer had to come up with a way to make a log or a stick that wasn't going to be dangerous. Believe it or not, under this there is a stick, but on top of it there's foam, and then there's layers of fabric that are covered in glue and paint. After that, they're painted to look just like logs that beavers might find in this forest. I can't wait for you to see our beavers fighting with these sticks. We have talked about the costume designer and set designer. The last role I want to tell you about is the choreographer. The choreographer is the one that makes up the dances. You can think of them kind of like the author of a book. All the words already exist, but the author's job is to string the words together to tell a story that people will enjoy reading. Well, the choreographer's job is to take a bunch of dance steps and dancers and put them together to make a ballet that people will enjoy watching. In this footage, you see some of our dancers working on these steps that will tell our story. They are going to practice these dances for 3 whole months before you get to see them dance on stage. We can't wait to show you our costumes, sets, props, and dances this December. And we are so excited that you are going to learn some of the choreography with your teacher at school. Thank you so much for learning about Columbia Dance's Nutcracker Ballet.